Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with mini buffalo chicken egg rolls. That's right, finally a recipe for people that can't decide whether to make egg rolls or buffalo-style chicken wings. Because with this new easy-to-make appetizer breakthrough, we can kind of have both at the same time. And since we are right in the middle of peak snack season, the timing to share this I think is perfect. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And first up, we need to cut up some cooked chicken. And what I have here is some leftover poached chicken breasts I did to make a chicken salad. And what we want to do here is cut this up somewhere between a dice and a cube. And that size doesn't really have a name, but sometimes I'll refer to it as dice cubes. But anyway, we'll go ahead and slice that across one way and then turn it and slice it across the other. And I'm not going to show it all, but I went ahead and did that to about 8 ounces of chicken total, which is roughly about 1.5 cups. And we'll go ahead and add that to a mixing bowl, along with all of our favorite buffalo chicken wing ingredients, including some diced celery, as well as a couple ounces of blue cheese. And please buy yourself a little wedge of the real stuff. All right, we don't want to be using that dry, pre-crumbled stuff in the plastic container. And then we'll also want to toss in a chunk of cream cheese, which is not really involved in the classic buffalo chicken wing, but we need a little bit here to kind of bind our filling. And then we're also going to add a nice generous splash of Louisiana hot sauce, or the hot sauce from some other state, whatever you're into. And then we'll finish this by seasoning it up with some kosher salt, as well as some freshly ground black pepper. And because it's in season, a little shake of cayenne. And that is it. We'll simply take a spoon and give this a mix. And we will keep mixing until we're sure everything's been incorporated evenly. And we're most concerned about the blue cheese. Okay, we really do want that evenly distributed. So give yourself a couple minutes until we've smeared everything together and it looks a little something like this. And once that's set, we are ready to move on to start filling our egg rolls. And to do that, of course, you're going to need some square egg roll wrappers, which are also sometimes sold as wonton wrappers, but same thing. And one tip here, as we're working with those, we want to keep a damp towel over the top, or either paper or cloth. And then the only other thing we're going to need is a little bit of an egg wash, which is simply an egg beaten with a tablespoon of water. And what we need to do before we start filling is go ahead and brush some of that egg wash around all the edges. And you can get some in the middle like you're seeing me do here. But we definitely want to make sure at least we get the edges. And then once that's happened, we'll go ahead and spoon on about 1 ounce of our filling, which is basically 2 tablespoons, also known as a heaping tablespoon. And we'll go ahead and transfer that on and kind of spread it out with our fingers. And then we'll go ahead and roll that bottom up over. But then we're going to stop and crimp in both edges and sort of even it out a little bit before we give it one more roll. And not only are we going to make sure both ends are pressed down and sealed, but we also want to fold over about 1/4 inch of that dough on either side. And trust me when I tell you, it's way easier than I'm making it look here. All right, I kept looking in the viewfinder afraid I was blocking the shot, which I really wasn't. But I blame that anxiety for the lack of smooth, graceful movements. But anyway, one way or another, we're going to seal those ends and fold over a little bit of dough. And once that's been accomplished, we'll apply a little more egg wash, because that little bit of dough we just folded over from the bottom does not have any. So we will apply a little bit more. And then we'll simply finish this up by rolling it all the way to the edge. And because we built up a little bit of extra dough along those 2 edges, not only is none of our filling going to leak out those ends, but we're not going to get a bunch of oil soaking in. And once done, we should have a nice, neat package that looks a little something like this. And what we'll want to do as we finish these is transfer them onto a plastic-lined tray or pan. And if I had portioned my filling on all of them, exactly the same as I did on the first one, I would have gotten exactly 16, which is why I got exactly 14. So apparently I used a little more for the rest of them. But that's fine, let's just say the recipe makes between 14 and 16. But anyway, once those are done, we can go ahead and wrap those up until we're ready to fry. Or if we want, we could freeze those for a future date. Or of course we could just go ahead and start frying right away, which is what I'm going to do right now in some hot oil set over medium heat. And while of course these are much easier to do in a deep fryer, they still really work out quite well pan fried like this. All right, as long as our oil comes up at least halfway, we should be good. And what we'll do is give those a couple minutes on each side. Although it looks like this side could have used a little more time. Except that one's good. Must be a hot spot. And to counter that, we can always just reposition these. And basically because our filling is already cooked, all we're doing here is getting the outside as brown and crispy as possible before the stuff inside tries to escape. which eventually it will if you keep them in here too long. But basically I like to let these fry as long as I can before they get too dark or they start exploding. And right about here I decided they had gone long enough, and I transfer those onto a plate with a paper towel underneath so they could drain just a little bit. And sure, they look gorgeous and appeared crispy, but of course, as tradition dictates, I grabbed a fork to make sure. Oh yeah. And after hearing that sound, I knew they were officially ready to plate up, which I'm doing next to a little bit of pure Louisiana hot sauce. And I finished up with a little bit of celery leaf, since what the heck else are we going to do with that stuff? And that's it. My mini buffalo chicken egg rolls were done. And while that plain Louisiana hot sauce might seem like kind of a boring accompaniment, it really was absolutely perfect. Okay, classic buffalo-style chicken wing sauce is nothing more than hot sauce with melted butter or margarine. But because of the creamy, buttery goodness provided by the cream cheese and the blue cheese, I didn't think I needed any in the dip, and I was right. But of course, having said that, you go ahead and serve these any way you want. I mean, you are, after all, the flippin' boss of your dippin' sauce. But for me, the plain hot sauce worked absolutely perfectly. And I'm not picky. I'll pretty much eat any filling stuffed in a crispy egg roll, but the combination of that tender chicken and creamy cheeses, which was perfectly balanced by that little bit of texture and bitterness from the celery, I thought made for just a magnificent filling. So basically, to summarize, this is everything you love about buffalo-style chicken wings, without the bones, and without having to eat the celery and blue cheese separately. Plus, it all comes packaged in a beautiful, crispy, tube-like delivery system. And who among us does not love things delivered in tubes? So I really did thoroughly enjoy these, and I proved it by eating like 9 of them. And I'm imagining you will also probably do the same thing. But there's only one way to find out for sure, which is why I really do hope you give these a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.